Philip Kapleau, in the Zen classic, The Three Pillars of Zen, makes this comparison between the Eastern archetypal figure of the Buddha, contrasting it with the Western archetypal figure of Rodin's The Thinker. And I want to present these because it really helps us to understand the quality of embodiment that is cultivated, that is present in meditation and mindfulness practice, versus how we are when we're worried about something, when we're just lost in our thoughts, lost in our minds. Okay, so this is what Kapleau says. The figure of the Buddha is serene, stable, radiating boundless light and compassion. In contrast, Rodin's The Thinker is a solitary figure, lost in thought and contorted in body, remote and isolated from himself, and it typifies the opposite state that is embodied in the image of the Buddha. Okay, so when we look at the thinker, we see someone who is lost in their thoughts, lost in their minds. In fact, the body is twisted, it's contorted, and there's a sense of separation between the mind, the head, and the torso, and the rest of the body. The figure it's not upright, it's twisted, the spine is sort of rounded forward, and the thinker is sitting in a way that looks isolated from others, but also from the environment. It's a figure who's sort of enveloped in upon themselves and has lost connection to the experience of being in the body and is just wrapped up in the thinking process. So as well as teaching meditation, I also work as a therapist, and this is a sort of typical posture that we see if someone is suffering from anxiety or depression, that they are very much absorbed or fixated by difficult thought processes at the exclusion of the other processes, at the exclusion of interoceptive awareness, that sensation, how does it feel to be in the body, not able to pay attention to the sensations in the core, emotions, and in the moment when they do turn inside ever so briefly and they feel the difficulty of being in their bodies, it immediately pushes them back into worry, into thinking. It starts a new thought process which they become wrapped up in. And we also know from neuroplasticity that the more we do something, the better we get at it. So the more we're worrying, the more we're thinking about our problems, in many ways we become sort of world-class worriers. And the process or what we see when people are worrying like this, so what they're trying to do really is solve a problem. They're going into their mind, into that default mode network. They're trying to figure out a solution, which is really great if you're trying to figure out a real world problem, what to cook for dinner, to plan the next vacation. But it's not so effective at solving emotional problems, existential problems. The more we think about them, the greater that problem seems to grow. So what we know from the meditation tradition, actually what we know from the work of neuroscientists such as Antonio Damasio, is that there is a real importance of connecting to the interoceptive experience. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of wisdom that comes through connecting to the body. In simple research experiments, we see that people who don't have a good connection to the body, they're not able to efficiently choose food on a menu. They're not able to make good decisions in their lives, and they're not able to lean into the wisdom and information that is coming through the gut, through the body, that helps us to make good choices. So this figure of the thinker who's lost in thought, very disconnected from the body, is it's not a particularly effective way to solve one's difficulties. Kaplau talks about, in contrasting these figures, he talks about the thinker, the center of the thinker's world is here. It's up here in the brain with abstraction, imagination, rumination. And he talks how meditation, in particular Zen practice, how it supports this shift of awareness, a literal repositioning. So I'm quoting Kaplau. He says there's a repositioning of the mind away from this reactive and discursive intellect, and the mind moves down into the belly, into the core, into a much more receptive space where there is a sense of allowing, and a sense of allowing whatever is there to be present. So we're not avoiding difficulty, we're not trying to push away or to avoid having difficult thoughts, but instead of processing them from this very sort of head-centered space, we're finding a way to be with our difficulty in a much more open and receptive way that includes the body. So the figure of the Buddha, you can see there's a sense of connection to the ground. The feet and legs are in contact with the earth. The spine, there's a dignified posture, the spine is upright, and there's a sense of integration between the spine and the head and the neck, and also the pelvis. There is a sense that the center of the Buddha, this sort of archetypal figure, that the awareness is in the core, it's in the belly, also sometimes called the hara or the dantian. And if the thinker, if his processes are running on thoughts, the key is in the name, the Buddha's processes are running on sensation, and that includes sounds, smells, the sensations of breathing, the experience of being in the body, but in the mindfulness tradition also this understanding of the mind almost like a sixth sense, and that we can pay attention to our thought processes much in the same way that we pay attention to other sensations. So thoughts are to the mind what sounds are to the ears. When we start to look at our thought processes in that way, we start to observe the movement of the mind in meditation, we begin to learn some things, we begin to see things a little bit differently, that when we pay attention, we might notice that there are many voices, there's not just one, and that there isn't even just one coherent voice. We start to notice all of these different voices that may be within us. And we don't have to identify with them. One voice may tell you that you're good enough. Another voice might tell you that you're not good enough. In fact, on the days when you're having a hard time, sort of evident in the posture of the thinker, where your mood is low, maybe you're tired, maybe you're having some difficulty in your life, it's on those days when you're much more likely to identify with those difficult, familiar thought processes. So the process of meditation, in a way, is to drop into the body, to cultivate interoceptive awareness. Breath meditation can be particularly helpful for this because it really connects us. It can, over time, sort of support and cultivate this capacity to be with our experience. And we can begin to pay attention even to difficult thought processes without having that habitual sort of aversion, the habitual tendency to just push them away that really doesn't help us to move forward with our lives. So one of the things to understand about the mindfulness tradition and meditation practice, it's all about reactivity. So we all have difficult stuff. We all have painful memories, painful thoughts, things that we like about ourselves, things that we dislike about ourselves. But this posture of the thinker is a very reactive posture. It's someone who is having these thoughts and reacting strongly against them, identifying strongly with them, and in that way sort of remaining locked with them. Whereas the Buddha, the awareness centered in the core and a much more a space of allowing and openness, is also difficult thoughts, difficult memories, difficult images that are coming. But there isn't that same degree of reactivity. There's a greater sense of allowing, of openness to what is there. And in that way, the quality of suffering is decreased, it's diminished. So I find these images very helpful, very illustrative of the differences between mindfulness practice, what we're doing in meditation, and how it looks like to be someone who is completely wrapped up and lost in difficult thought processes. And in a way, the meditation journey, even if it's just for a moment, or even if it's just when we're sitting on the cushion, it's about embodying that space that is exemplified by the image, the figure of the Buddha sitting in meditation, where there is this connection to the body. We are allowing space for interoceptive awareness, to feel our emotions, to feel the sensations in the body, because there's so much wisdom in the body, and there's so much that we can learn, lean into, and trust that will help to shape how we can move forward in our lives in a way that is present, sensory-based, and that includes thinking but not at the exclusion of emotions or sensations, and that we're able to live a more present and a more integrated life, integrated with ourselves, integrated into nature, and integrated with others. Okay, so this is the first video. I'm going to put some other videos up just to continue this discussion. I hope it is useful.